So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ibn Abidin, rahimahullah ta'ala, mentions in Raddul Muhtar that both the local and global sighting opinions are valid in the Hanafi madhab. Does he not say that global sighting is sounder, more precautionary? There is a view, correct, that in the Hanafi madhab, that one should go, and he uses the word global, but I'm going to, because we use terms that are mentioned by our classical scholars, and we think that they mean the same thing. So, in a world now where we have mass communication, WhatsApp, email, text message, phone, whatever, in a time gone by, that didn't exist. So if I sighted the moon in Bradford, how could I get my message to Liverpool? How could I get my message to Glasgow? How could I get my message to London? Right? Forget Morocco. The only way is I could get on a camel. Yes, I could get on a horse. I could run, but that's not really going to get me far. Or I could light a fire and tell the local villages to light the fire when they see my fire. Or I could fire cannons. I would have to use a mechanism by which I would make my declaration. I could use the human voice and hope that people can hear that. When they hear that, they will do the same, so other people will hear that. How far do you think 3-4 hours of that would go from Bradford? Okay? That would go, how far? 20 miles? 30 miles? 50 miles? You know what? I'm in a good mood. 100 miles. That's global. Can you see? Not WhatsApp. Because WhatsApp didn't exist. We now use terms, classical terms, and apply them in the modern world. We have to look at the context in which that term was being used. And then look at how does that same thing apply here. For instance, on a slightly tangent, we use multi-million-pound laboratories to determine that there's 1 part per billion of something in a drink and say that's haram. Yet the fuqaha in the past, all they used was sight, taste, and smell. Because 1,000 years ago, that was science. There was no multi-million-pound laboratories to do 1 part per billion test, were there? So we borrow phrases which are from classical terms and try to apply the modern understanding to them. So we have to be careful about that. I hope that answers the question.
Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear,
Sheikh. Just for the procedure of the questions, if everybody can use the chat function, we won't be enabling everybody to speak because that would cause chaos. So the questions will be posed on the chat. I will read them out. And our panel, Mufti Amjad Sahab, Maulana Mufti Ashfaq Sahab, Mufti Zubair Duda Sahab, will inshallah take the questions. One question received: what are Wifaqul Ulama doing to unite the other moon sighting committees in the UK to accept their methods of deciding the start and end and dates of the Islamic month? Mufti Amjad Sahab, procedure-wise, I think that would be best for you to answer.
Assalamu alaikum. Okay, Jazakallah khair, Mufti Zakaria Sahab, for selecting me to answer that question. In terms of procedures, Wifaqul Ulama's policy is quite clear. They are open to dialogue with all parties. However, that is a respectful dialogue, a mature dialogue, a dialogue in which people are keen to address their issues, and not people who may want to usurp or have their own political agendas. So I hope that's pretty clear in terms of what Wifaqul Ulama's position is. More than happy to work with any parties, any groups. We've worked with many organizations, and this is something that they're more than happy to do. But as I said, there has to be certain criteria for that.
Another question, I'm asking why not follow any other countries within the continent of Africa other than Morocco and South Africa? Anybody from the panel? Asking why not follow any other countries within the continent of Africa other than Morocco and South Africa?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. जी, मोरक्को से इसलिए ख़बर ली जाती है और साउथ अफ्रीका से कि वहाँ रुयत का एहतमाम है और वहाँ की रिलायबल ख़बर हम तक पहुँचती है. दीगर कंट्रीज़ और दीगर मुल्कों की ख़बर हम इसलिए नहीं लेते कि वहाँ चांद देखने का ऐसा एहतिमाम नहीं है जैसा इन दो मुल्कों में होता है.
For those who don't understand the Urdu, Mufti Ashfaq Saab has mentioned that Morocco and South Africa country have been selected due to their robust system of Ruyat that is in place. And, due to that, we have an agreement with them, and Alhamdulillah, Morocco has a very strong procedure. We've been to visit there, and we're getting reliable information from there. If other sources are available, we are eager to communicate and contact that, inshallah. Right, a question. Why have the biggest ulama in the UK, living and deceased, not said anything in regards to the current system of following Saudi Arabia? How can we go about changing mentalities of these ulama without it causing a huge fitna in the community? Mufti Amjad Sahab.
Yeah, Jazakumullah khair. I think that's the $1 million question, isn't it? How do you do that? I think the only thing is dialogue. I can't see any other simple answer to this. There's no other way around it. If there was a simple solution, I think that would have already been resolved. So until, obviously, folk decide for whatever reason to move, then that will happen. I don't think there's a simple answer to that. That is the question. That question has been put forward. An answer to that would solve all issues. So unfortunately, I cannot answer that.
Criteria of Wifaqul Ulama, but unfortunately, due to external pressures or other problems, they aren't able to move at the moment, or sometimes they choose to stay out of it and say they are following the decision of the Central Moon Sighting Committee, so we should go and speak to them. A subsequent question of a similar nature just received that have you approached the Al-Lumbari? Again, if anybody does approach the Al-Lumbari, their response is that we follow the decision made by Central Moon Sighting Committee. You have to speak to them. So that is where the procedure of dialogue gets hindered.
Yeah, that's in a nutshell. There's many other things we can share, but obviously this is a public platform, and being a public platform, because some of these conversations are taking place in private, I don't think it's appropriate to share them in public. But yes, what the questioner or the statement says is accurate. There are many individuals who clearly see that this is the way forward, to go with local sighting, and from local sighting then go to the nearest position, whether it's they're not happy with the data that comes from Saudi, or whatever the rationale is, whatever the argument is, but then there's the appetite is not there to take the next step. And therefore, until that happens, then we will be in that scenario.
Mufti Sahib, on your presentation, somebody is asking, can we use optical aid to sight the hilal, and will testimony be valid?
Yes, optical aid can be used. That optical aid which is not bringing the hilal into existence, so I'm not talking about CCD, for example, that which is actually assisting, like, whether we wear glasses or something which is assisting the sight in order to be able to see it. So the ulama have given permissibility for that.
What did you say?
How old does the moon have to be able to be seen?
Well, there's big difference of discussion on that, and I think there's an article, if you go to Wifaqul Ulama's website, and if you go and search Imkani Ru'ya, I think I might have sent that to Usman. I sent that document to you, Imkani Ru'ya 1, because I downloaded it for you. So there is a document. If you go through that, rather than giving kind of specific points, and I want to be accurate with it, the research is there. So if you go to Wifaqul Ulama's website, go on to there, and you'll see the Imkani Ru'ya document. I did send it to the administrator. He may put it up whilst I'm talking.
Next question, have Wifaqul Ulama produced a list of locations? Have Wifaqul Ulama produced a list of locations where they go out to sight the moon? If not, can they make this information public, and also advise which of Wifaqul Ulama representatives will be present? The public want to go out and sight, and I think it is important Wifaq take steps to include the public. I'll just elaborate on that. Alhamdulillah, at the time close to the 29th, a lot of ulama in the Wifaq group will put out where they are sighting, and based on that, sighting takes place in local places. So if you have within your locality ulama who are following the Wifaq or Batli Moon sighting or local criteria, if you contact them, you should be able to determine where sighting is taking place.
There you go. So that person who asked the question about the Imkani Ru'ya, so this is the paper that we wrote, the research paper that's on this topic. And you'll see the Yalop, Shokat, Oda, angular separation, lag time, elongation, moon age, and the recommendations which come. So this article is available from there, that place there, wifaqulama/images/fatwa/fiqh moonsighting.pdf. Maybe the administrator can share that later. So it explains everything. It's a bit complicated, it's a bit technical, so it's not for everybody's appetite. But if those who have that kind of keenness and interest, then please read that at your pleasure, and you will see the various points which is mentioned on there. So there's the moon age. It takes a minimum of approximately 8.5 to 15.5 hours for the moon to move 7 degrees away from the sun. 8.5 hours is the case when the moon is closest to Earth, and 5 for the ecliptic plane. To the naked eye, it would be visible at 16 to 23 hours of age. So you've got all the information there. This is a very well-researched paper, and obviously it's also available in Urdu as well afterwards. So there's the link. If you want to go there, I think maybe I can post this in the chat. Hold on. Copy. I'll try to put this into the chat, but I'll pass back to Mufti Zakaria Sahab.
A suggestion, not a question. If we have observers in or around the equator, it would be great, as moon sighting is very clear from that region. Suggestion, so we'll look into that, inshallah. It is great to hear. Mufti Amjad Sahab, a question directed towards you. I understand that you believe there are some flaws on the Crescent Chasers methodology. Do you want to elaborate?
No, that's a good point. It's an absolute good point, good question. I don't know if you heard the question, quite a long one, about the fact that local sighting. I've mentioned already that Wifaqul Ulama do go with local sighting first. There's a new organization, New Crescent Society, that is also pushing and advocating for local sighting. And they feel that the best way forward is for all parties is to go by local sighting. We could not disagree with that. We absolutely agree with that. So I hope I call on the record to be crystal clear in what I'm saying. The issues I have are, first of all, when it comes to producing and accepting a system, then that has to be flawless. That system has to be flawless. For now, I would say that the stage, that the work that New Crescent Society and those associated with it is at its very early stages yet. When we look at scientific projects, we do not make policy decisions when we're still at the data collation stage. We are currently at data collation stage. So there's fine with the collating the data. Unfortunately, and this is more to do with personalities, that some people may feel that there's no place, that this should not be ulama-led, that this should be led by one or two individuals or however. That's not going to work. So the issue is not the process, or the issue is mainly the personalities, I would say. And I think until individuals realize that declaration of the Hilal is made by ulama, and they will seek information and data where they wish to seek it from, because it's the office of Qadha that makes the decision. So they may bring into their court who they see fit and appropriate and make that decision. So until we gather more data, until we have a system in place, that would be stage one. So the first thing we would do is, I think there's about 3-4 years worth of data. I've had conversations with 3 or 4, as I believe, are key individuals in that area, and I've made it quite clear what my position is. They all know crystal clear. Once that data goes past this stage and is now developing further and it becomes stronger, then that's at least the data collation side done. The next stage is to start to bring parties to sign some memorandum of understanding to say that we will support this development. Wifaqul Ulama, and I will pass this mic on to others, are more than happy to sign that memorandum of understanding. However, that's not just that Wifaqul Ulama signs that memorandum of understanding. We want other parties to sign that memorandum of understanding. Wifaqul Ulama, with its numerous members, have had 4 to 5 meetings with New Crescent Society. The question I'd like to raise is how many meetings have taken place with other large moon sighting committee declaration organizations as well. So until then, that's the next stage, is the memorandum of understanding. Once all parties have signed the memorandum of understanding, then we can carry on to decide how we take the next few years forward, because then it will not be solely a Wifaqul Ulama decision, it will be based on that memorandum of understanding decision. So I hope that's been clear. Qari Sahib, you want to add to it? Okay. So I hope that's been clear. And Qari Sahib is telling me there may be some other questions as well. But that general statement from Wifaqul Ulama, and I've got Qari Sahib nodding his head as well. So that's a statement that's coming from Wifaqul Ulama's position with regards to the development within New Crescent Society.
A question on regional sighting, how that relates to man-made time zones versus the knowledge of Allah's design and visibility curve. Our horizon appears to be more closely aligned to South Asia. Mufti Amjad Sahib, I think it's regarding the visibility curves.
When it comes to the so-called geographical borders, there's also an essence of based on authority, legal authority. For instance, Saudi Arabia has legal authority amongst its borders. It, meaning the leader, the king, has that power to make a declaration based on his sighting or when sighting is made, which will apply to all his citizens. So even though geographical boundaries are arbitrary, we're talking about the legal precedents they possess. So Wifaqul Ulama UK is limited to Wifaqul Ulama UK. So we don't make declarations for France, we don't make declarations for Spain, we don't make declarations for anybody else. However, if a French organization or a Spanish organization of ulama wanted to sign up with Wifaqul Ulama to work together, then that's a different matter. So just because these borders are arbitrary, we do not disrespect the legal jurisdiction that they continue to have.
Also, if Wifaq do not sight the moon the 29th, then do Wifaq go out to sight on the 30th as well or not? Do Wifaq go out to sight on the 30th or not? Just to clarify that one, currently you might have heard and received news of people sighting on the 30th also. And that is also being relayed back in groups that the moon was sighted, and that was the night of the first moon according to the new month, but according to the previous month, that was the 30th. Now, that is currently being done to help support our data collecting for local sighting. So even though currently may not be relevant, but down the line that may help support us in uniting on local sighting if the need arises. So even though that is not sunnah to sight on the 30th, but it's been practiced by certain groups around the country to help collect the data. Can unity be achieved following Morocco sightings or using local sighting method, as there is data for the past 4 years to prove that Hilal can be seen in the UK? It is more likely that unity can be achieved with local sighting. Again, we agree that can be a way forward with regards to uniting people, but until the main bodies don't come on board, we are following the current criteria, which is, at least for example, I'll give you this coming Eid. If we go to local only sighting, then CMC and
Mufti Zakaria Sahab, Mufti Zakaria Sahab, if I can just come in, Mufti Zakaria Sahab. Yeah. Mufti Zakaria Sahab, I think I've answered this question with the general statement that I made. And the general statement is, Wifaqul Ulama are more than happy to engage with any organization, and I mean any organization that is exploring ways to unify the Muslims of the UK. There's no problem with that whatsoever. When it comes to what they're determining, when they're meaning local citing, for now that is a day after what we would consider local citing according to Wifaqul Ulama criteria, then that is something that, as you know, we are engaging with, or have engaged with. We have left numerous responses. They need to be bottomed out. When they are bottomed out, then we can move forward. But again, I repeat, that has to be done in a respectful, amicable, mature way. Sometimes that is absent. That is the final statement on this whole NCS and anything else. So if we have only questions, Mufti Zakaria Sahab, on other matters, rather than giving more airtime to this.
Moving on. Just a statement, I don't think it's a question. Saudi has said many times, do not follow us. Yes, we agree. The guidance from Saudi scholars is follow your local citing information. Regional citing. That's answered. Why do Wifaqul Ulama follow the majorities? Like the majority question, why do Wifaqul Ulama not promote and follow majority so that unity can be formed between the Ummah? When we follow another country that contradicts Saudi, then how do we follow them in the days of Hajj?
Mufti Ashfaq Sahab.
जैसा कि अभी मुफ्ती अमजद साहब ने अपने बयान में ये बताया था कि काजी के फैसला हुदूद मुल्क में जहाँ तक उसका मुल्क का हद है वहाँ तक नाफिज होता है। इसलिए जब हम जाते हैं सऊदी अरब तो वहाँ के काजी का फैसला हम तस्लीम करते हैं। दीगर महीनों में भी और हज के दिनों में भी, अगर रमज़ान में भी गए हैं तो रमज़ान उनके एतबार से हम करेंगे, अगर शव्वाल वहाँ पर हैं आप तो वहाँ के एतबार से शव्वाल करेंगे, लेकिन हुदूद मुल्क से बाहर फिर काजी का फैसला नाफिज नहीं होता। इसलिए हम जब वहाँ जाते हैं तो वहाँ की इत्तिबा करते हैं।
Right. Mufti Ashfaq Sahab has mentioned that the Saudi jurisdiction is the limits of the country. So when a judge presides over the decision for Saudi Arabia, that is restricted to Saudi Arabia. Nobody is obliged outside Saudi Arabia to follow that decision. Now with regards to Hajj, Hajj is not for a global sighting requirement. Hajj is again restricted to the borders of Saudi Arabia. Eid al-Adha is a separate obligation that is not connected to Hajj. You will celebrate Eid al-Adha according to your local sighting. And the strongest argument you can use for that is, until we did not have modes of communication around the world going back in history for a good more than 100 years, 1300 years or more than 1400 years, you would not be able to know when Hajj is until a Hajj group would return to your country. So how would you follow Hajj as a criteria for Eid al-Adha? So nothing contradicts following Saudi when it comes to decision and especially Hajj.
इसके साथ एक बात और भी मिला दें कि हज की फर्जियत सन हिजरी 8 में हुई है, जबकि रोज़ा, रमज़ान, ईद ये सन हिजरी 2 में फ़र्ज़ हो गया है।
If you got that, Mufti Sahab just mentioned, Mufti Ashfaq Sahab, that the obligation of fasting and Eid came in the 2nd year of Hijri, and Hajj did not come until the 8th year of Hijri. So a big difference in that also. Who runs the Central Moon Sighting Committee? I think that you might need to go onto their website and find out who is in charge there. We are not part of that. Is there a criteria to become a crescent chaser? How easy or difficult is the process to become a crescent chaser? Mufti Amjad Sahab, I think you're in charge of the crescent chaser program.
Ji, Bismillah. Crescent chaser, if you go to the website, again, Wifaq Ulama, it's a treasure of ilm, mashallah, is the Wifaq Ulama website. If you go there, and you'll find, I'm not sure particularly which page it's on, but if you go to the Crescent Chasers page, you will be able to send a link or fill a form out, which will go to the administrator. The administrator will go through some various questions in order to gather your data, know your experience, and take an image or request an image from you. And then obviously you can then start. You can literally start that tomorrow. You don't need to wait. Once you've been connected on, your name will appear on the list, which is available online. And then that will be also shared with those ulama that take the witness statement. And then obviously, once we know the ability that this person possesses and the information, if they make a sighting is referred to a scholar, then we can take that point on board. So that is a developing area. We invite all parties to join that. That opens up to the New Crescent Society and anybody else for that matter. Let's work with organizations that are already established and are already doing the work rather than reinventing the wheel or setting up Me Too organizations.
Saudi moon sighting for the sake of argument is correct. Would you not prefer to have one global lunar calendar, especially when it is not inconsistent with Sharia? To do so, and Islamic religious leaders under the Organization of Islamic Cooperation have reached consensus in the past that if the moon was sighted in one country, then other countries would also accept it. Right? This is going towards global sighting. Now, if Saudi would make a proper declaration, then subsequently Morocco and other countries will also sight the moon, and that would obviously be a uniting factor, correct declaration. But what can't be a uniting factor for the global community is when moon is announced before its visibility, then that is where this unity arises. So global sighting is not a Shari'i requirement. If you understand that, your local sighting or a correct sighting is what is required. Sumu li ruyatihi, fast according to the sighting. So sighting is a requirement. So we can't hypothetically just claim that if Saudi is correct, we can make a calendar, etc., etc.
और एक बात नोट कर लें इसमें कि शरीयत में ये बात मकसूद नहीं है कि पूरी दुनिया में एक साथ ईद हो, इसलिए कि चांद का जो निज़ाम है उसका सिस्टम ही ये है कि हर महीने में अलग जगह से नज़र आना शुरू होगा. तो ये बात मुमकिन ही नहीं कि चांद के एतबार से आप ईद और रमज़ान भी करें और पूरी दुनिया में एक दिन हो, ये बात मुमकिन नहीं है.
Mufti Ashfaq Saab just mentioned, it's not possible to have a same-day sighting, because if the moon has a different cycle each month, it will appear in different locations. Over a 24-hour period, it will become visible. Therefore, different countries, according to day and night, will sight it, and there will always be a day's difference. So global sighting is not practical. Mufti Amjad Sahab, a question made to you to explain what is CCD imaging.
Ji, let me give you the technical definition of it, rather than something off the top of my head. There we are. So we're talking about CCD, which stands for Charge Coupled Device. Okay? And what it uses is electrical charge, and in order to then produce digital imaging. So it's in simple terms, it produces the image in very simple terms. And what you can do is it can be seen during the day, just before sunset, and you will see that there's an eagerness particularly, and we've seen these images floating around, there's an eagerness in particular we see, for example, in Saudi in particular, where they're to declare or be the first to see the hilal. It's seen as something of an achievement. And each year or each month, people try to come down and beat the record and get it as low as possible. So we see a lot of CCD imaging taking place, and then those are shared on Twitter. So it's not an observation. It's not that it's a visualization of the hilal and an image is captured, which is then magnified. It's in other words, it's bringing that image into reality. So that's not correct there. Also, since we're talking about the Saudi situation, you'll find that, information comes very slow. I think there's been 2 episodes in Sha'ban where, it's been declared as the start of the month, and then partially the way through it's been refixed, rescheduled, and then moved. So it's not just, like I said, the one focus in Ramadan. I just want to remind the attendees what we started the presentation with, and also Qari Saab mentioned in his short lecture as well, about the fact that this is something we need to declare on a monthly basis. So I hope that CCD question answers.
The question, is optical assistance okay? Yes, it's okay. We've already answered that. Then why not use Hubble telescope? We won't use something just to prove that the moon is there. It has to be a sighting aspect. Now, normal telescope something will give you a sighting. You won't go to use something beyond that. If I'm right, Mufti Amjad Saab, you want to elaborate? The question is, why don't we use the Hubble telescope?
Obviously, like you're saying, Mufti Saab, there's a limit to what you could use. If you're going to go to that kind of level, then you're going to see the hilal probably all the time. And in reality, the Hubble telescope, you're seeing into space. So it's not a visualization of the light reflecting over the hilal from Earth itself. So I think that the distinction is that you're using that type of equipment, whether it's a telescope or binoculars, and all it's doing is improving your sight. It's an extension of your sight from being on the ground or near the ground. A telescope is going beyond that in terms of a Hubble telescope, because with that you can see, in the edges of the galaxy. So I think that there's limits to what we can do there.
Question: why is Saudi being followed and not nearest Muslim country? Why is Saudi being followed and not nearest Muslim country? Just a simple question. Our criteria is going to the nearest country, and we are not advocating following Saudi. Question: did Wifaqul Ulama reach out to CMC UK for this?